God is that. God remains that. And we have killed him. How shall we console ourselves? The most murderous of all murder, holiest and mightiest that the world has yet proceeded and bled to death under our knives. Who will wipe this blood off us? What water is there for us to clean ourselves? What festivals of atonement, what sacred games shall we have to invent? Is not the greatness of this deed too great for us? Must we ourselves not become gods simply to appear of it? Nihilism has become a quite popular concept in recent years. It is often associated with the view that meaning is lost and life has no ultimate purpose. But is this just a philosophical viewpoint, or is it really increasingly felt by more people in the modern world? In this video, we will delve deeply into nihilism, which can also be described and the loss of meaning, spanning from philosophy and psychology to literature and contemporary culture. What is nihilism? Historical and philosophical foundations. Nihilism is the belief life is without meaning, truth, or value. Derived from the Latin word nihil, means nothing. It challenges traditional beliefs, morality, and social structures. Though its roots can be traced to ancient Greek skepticism, nihilism emerged as a prominent philosophical movement in 18th and 19th century Europe, especially as Enlightenment thinking and the decline of religious authority created a crisis of meaning. Writers like Ivan Turgenev reflected disillusionment, while Arthur Schopenhauer described existence governed by a blind and insatiable will. Friedrich Nietzsche took this further with his famous declaration, "God is dead," symbolizing the collapse of absolute values. Rather than a call to despair, Nietzsche saw this as an opportunity for individuals to redefine meaning thought their own values, aiming towards the ideal of the Übermensch. Nihilism appears in the various forms: epistemological, denying objective knowledge; moral, rejecting universal ethics; and cultural, encoded in literature and films. From Dostoevsky's conflicted characters to modern cinematic figures like the Joker, its influence continues to shape contemporary thought. In this way, nihilism marks both a philosophical crisis and the turning points how individuals confront existence, knowledge, and values in the absence of absolute foundations. What does Nietzsche's "God is dead" phrase really mean? Friedrich Nietzsche's most quoted and often misunderstood phrases, "God is dead," first introduced the gay science. This statement is a profound warning, not merely a religious rebellion or a straightforward aesthetic claim. Nietzsche meant that the value systems humanity has relied on for meaning, morality, and truth for millennia are collapsing. Modern people can no longer trust religion or absolute truths. Science is rising, traditional beliefs are weakening, and humanity realizes it is not the center of the universe. Thus, God is dead is a metaphor for this cultural and intellectual rupture. According to Nietzsche, humanity is long dependent on existential source, gods, the afterlife, universal morals to make sense of life. These top-down values shape identity, but they no longer convince. The modern individual faces a void, a loss not only of belief but also of direction. The meaning once found by looking upwards is slipping away, and how to fill this void is uncertain. This leads to what Nietzsche calls the rise of nihilism, with the collapse of foundational values, rights and wrongs. Wrongs become relative, but Nietzsche's key concern and what happened next. After declaring God is dead, he asked, "What now?" This is where the concept of the overman emerge. In this new area, individuals must create their own values, no longer obeying existential moral laws, but trusting their own creative power. This is difficult. Most prefer to conform rather than face freedom. The overman is the one who can navigate this void and forge new meaning. God is dead thus signals both a crisis and a call to creative empowerment, a dangerous but hopeful idea. Nietzsche acknowledged this transformation will not be easy. Old values cannot be replaced instantly. By saying we killed God, he emphasized that responsibility now rests with humanity. Our task is to not just survive, but to transform life itself. Nietzsche's philosophy is therefore not one of destruction, but of reconstruction. In short, God is dead is far more than a religious statement. It captures the modern existential crisis, the collapse of values, and the burden of freedom. Nietzsche's message are clear. Face the void and create new values, or cling to old patterns and watch them fall. Creating one's own meaning is the greatest risk and the most human act. Dostoevsky. If God does not exist, everything is permitted. Dostoevsky's phrase, "If God does not exist, everything is permitted," is a profound philosophical challenge about freedom, morality, and meaning. This idea is especially explored throughout Ivan Karamazov. In the book called The Brothers Karamazov, Ivan argues that without God, there is no universal authority or absolute distinction between right and wrong. Without this foundation, why should anyone refrain from wrongdoing? This touches the core of nihilism. Nietzsche's God is dead creates a void that in Dostoevsky's work becomes a deep spiritual crisis. Ivan represents the modern individual who struggles to find moral order without faith, while his brother Alyosha holds on to God-centered ethics. Between the broader tension between divine morality and the human freedom. Dostoevsky is less concerned with God's existence than with the darkness within the human soul. In Crime and Punishment, Raskolnikov tests whether being an extraordinary man justifies breaking moral laws. He commits murder relying on reason but suffers on psychological collapse. Dostoevsky shows that basing morality solely on individual conscience does not free a person, it can destroy them. Atheism for Dostoevsky is an existential burden, placing full moral responsibility on the individual. Without divine law, what is sin? But what does my conscience say? A question that pushes one to the limit. Despite the darkness, Dostoevsky offers hope. His characters endure inner struggle, but sometimes find redemption through love, sacrifice, and forgiveness. Nihilism, in his view, is not a path to despair, but a challenge that can lead to transformation. Thus, if God does not exist, everything is permitted, is a challenge. Without belief, how will you create your ethical compass, and where will it lead you? Dostoevsky suggests that modern individuals must confront this question, recognizing that morality is not just rules from above, but the difficult task of building a moral universe from within. Camus and living with absurdity. Albert Camus is one of the philosophers who faced the great loneliness of questioning humanity's place in the universe. According to him, life is fundamentally meaningless because the universe does not answer our questions. Human beings are creatures in search of meaning, yet they encounter a world that is silent and indifferent. Camus defines this situation as the absurd, the collision between the search for meaning and absurd reality. Recognizing the absurd is not a crisis for Camus, it is a beginning with this awareness. The human being is confronted with three choices: to commit suicide, to seek solace through faith, or to learn to live with this meaninglessness. Camus' choice is the third one. True rebellion is continuing to live despite knowing that life has no inherent meaning. This idea of Camus is the most clearly seen in myth of Sisyphus. In Greek mythology, Sisyphus is condemned by the gods to roll a boulder up to hill for eternity, only for it to roll back down each time. Camus compares this endless, meaningless effort to humanity's relationship with life. We all struggle, work, love, lose, and start over with the hope of finding meaning. This cycle is exhausting, but Camus says one must image Sisyphus happy, because Sisyphus has accepted his fate and in defiance created his own meaning. For Camus, living with absurdity is a kind of freedom. If life has no universal meaning, then in this void, one has the freedom to create their own meaning. This also means responsibility, no longer guided by an overreaching meaning. One's own destination and choices become the determining factors. What makes life valuable is not what one believes, but how one lives and who one is. Camus' stance is neither nihilistic nor fully hopeful. It is more of a claim defiance. Life can be valuable even without inherent meaning. Love, friendship, nature, art, these can all make life worth living, even in absence of absolute meaning. Camus turns the idea of living with meaninglessness into philosophical courage. For him, despite life's absurdity, a person can still smile. The rebellious individuals is not just a victim of existence, they are its creator as well. And perhaps the core message of Camus is this: even if you cannot find the meaning of life, you can create it yourself. Accept the absurdity, but do not surrender to it. The psychological dimension, nihilism, and modern depression. Nihilism begins with the thought, life has no meaning, but it doesn't stop there. When its idea resonates within an individual, it can transform into not just a philosophical issue, but a psychological one, especially in the modern world. This condition turns into common emotional state. Feelings of meaninglessness, burnout, detachment, existential void. All of these are psychological phases of nihilism and often lie at the root of modern depression. In traditional societies, people found their identities within existential struggles like religion, culture, and family. What they would do, who they would become, and why they existed were largely determined. However, in the modern era, these structures begin to dissolve. Now, everyone must find their own meaning. While this seems like freedom, it is also a heavy burden, because no meaning is ready-made. And this void, especially when the search for meaning fails, silently swallows the individual. Psychiatrists like Viktor Frankl refers to this condition as the existential vacuum. According to Frank, not all forms of depression are biological or environmental. Some arise from the loss of meaning. That is, the person is not just sad, they no longer know why they are living. This is a different form of classic depression. Here the individual is not just unhappy, but has lost their connection to the world. And this has become much more prevalent in today's world. Social media, constant comparisons, the pressure to succeed, consumer culture, all of these promise the individuals more, but in reality, they create an inner void where nothing feels insufficient. The individuals struggling to find meaning in their existence get lost in this emptiness. They produce an image instead of meaning, living with superficiality rather than depth. This is why modern depression is not only a mood disorder, but also a crisis of meaning and identity. But within this darkness, there is also a way out. Nihilism thought it begins with nothinglessness, invites the individual to create meaning. If there is no meaning outside, then something can be built within. Therapy, art, friendship, work, production, empathy. These are the tools thought which one can shape their own meaning. In other words, nihilism calls the individuals not to despair, but to responsibility. Life may have no inherent meaning, but it can still be loved. Modern phase of nihilism. Internet culture and memes. In the digital age, nihilism has found an expression through internet culture and memes. What once manifested as a philosophical rejection of meaning now appears as irony-lanced content, absurd humor, and a culture of detachment. Memes in particular often reflects a worldview where nothing is taken seriously, everything is fleeting, and meaning is secondary to momentary amusement. Social media platforms amplifying this dynamic. Rapid content consumption, the pursuit of instant gratification, and the dominance of shallow engagement contribute to a broader sense of existential detachment. In this environment, memes function both as coping mechanism and as systems of a deeper cultural void. Rather than comforting existential questions, users often laugh them off. Phrases like everything is meaningless or we are all just pixels become punchlines, blurring the line between humor and despair. Behind the irony lies a shared awareness of disconnection and absurdity. A modern form of nihilism rests in digital entertainment. While this culture provides temporary relief, it also reinforces emotional detachment and meaninglessness. The rapid pace of content, flattening of individuals' identity into trends and templates, and the erosion of deep discourage all points to societal grappling with a lack of enduring values. Yet, this is not merely apathy. It can also be seen as a form of silent resistance. Emptiness expressed through memes and digital behavior reflects a collective sense of disillusionment. Transient culture reveals how far we drifted from traditional source of meaning. Thus, internet culture, meme-driven expression, represent not just a distraction, but a mirror that exposes the modern face of nihilism in a world overwhelmed by speed, irony, and constant pull of superficial connections. Conclusion: nihilism is often viewed end of traditional meaning, values, and structures, the collapse of belief in universal truths and moral certainties. To see it only as an end is overlook its transformative potential. While nihilism dismantles inherited frameworks, it also creates the ground for new ones. It comforts us to the absence of predetermined meaning and invites us to create our own. Nietzsche saw this not as a downfall, but as a call to responsibility. Without external authority, individuals are free, yet obligated to construct their own values. Similarly, Camus treated nihilism not as surrender, but as defiance. In facing life's absurdity without turning away, Camus treated nihilism not as surrender, but as defiance. In facing life's absurdity without turning away, he saw a path to authentic freedom, meaning in this way is not discovered, it is made. Thus, nihilism is both an ending and beginning. It ends illusion and begins autonomy. It challenges us to live without guarantees, but also empowers us to define what matters. In the void it reveals, it offers perhaps the most radical freedom of all, the chance to become the authors of our own meaning.